To an Inconstant One. This is one of those poems, like so many, where the title is very important. This title, To an Inconstant One, tells us that this poem is addressed to someone who is inconstant, which means unfaithful or disloyal. So with that in mind, let's read through this poem quickly and notice that this is using an older form of English where you is replaced with thou and yours with thine, and art is are, wast is was, etc. So here we go. To an Inconstant One. I loved thee once, I'll love no more. Thine be the grief, as is the blame. Thou art not what thou wast before. What reason I should be the same? He that can love unloved again hath better store of love than brain. God send me love my debts to pay, while unthrifts fool their love away. Nothing could have my love o'erthrown if thou hadst still continued mine. Yea, if thou hadst remained thy own, I might perchance have yet been thine. But thou thy freedom didst recall, that it thou might elsewhere enthrall. And then how could I but disdain a captive's captive to remain? When new desires had conquered thee and changed the object of thy will, it had been lethargy in me, not constancy, to love thee still. Yea, it had been a sin to go and prostitute affection so. Since we are taught no prayers to say to such as must to others pray. Yet do thou glory in thy choice of his good fortune boast. I'll neither grieve nor yet rejoice to see him gain what I have lost. The height of my disdain shall be to laugh at him, to blush for thee, to love thee still, but go no more a begging at a beggar's door. Now let's move on to the questions. Question number 1. The speaker's question in line 4 is justified based on the logic of what? So first, let's look back at lines 1 through 4. I loved thee once, I'll love no more. Thine be the grief, as is the blame. Thou art not what thou wast before. What reason I should be the same? Now let's take a look at the answers. A. Reverse psychology. This involves attempting to get someone to do or think the opposite of what one is actually proposing, and that's not what's going on here. The speaker is stating his own former and current thoughts and actions. He used to love her, this inconstant or unfaithful person, and now he no longer does so. And he's blaming her for it. Then he goes on to tell her that she has changed and asks her why he should be the same since she's now different. There's no indication that he's trying to get her to do anything at all in line 4 with his question, let alone try to get her to do something that would be the opposite of what he's saying somehow. So this answer is not supportable. Cross out A. B. Mutual consensus. This involves 2 or more people coming to an agreement, and he's not appealing to that in line 4. He said that she changed and implies that he also changed, but it's not because they mutually agreed to change. He's asking why, since she changed, he should not change as well. So his change is because she changed, not because they agreed to do it together. B isn't a supportable answer, and we can cross it out. C. Ends justifying the means. This involves the idea that questionable or bad actions or means are all right as long as the result of those questionable or bad actions, the ends, is a positive outcome. That's not what's going on here either. You might think that the lover's questionable action of changing led to the speaker's change, but in justifying the means implies that the person doing the means, however bad, is attempting to bring about the end because it's good. We can't assume that the former lover changed so that the speaker would change, nor can we assume that his change is a positive end. This is way too convoluted, and it's not correct. So let's cross out C and move on. D. Trial and error. This involves trying something to see if it works, and then trying something else if the first thing doesn't work. This doesn't fit line 4, so cross out D. E. Reciprocal action. If you know that reciprocal means given or done in return for something, then you will probably have gotten this question correct pretty quickly. The speaker is saying because his former lover changed, he is within his rights to change as well. So he is reciprocating her actions or feelings in kind. The correct answer is E. Reciprocal action. Question number 2. In line 5, the speaker refers to one who what? So let's look at line 5 and then at the line that follows to get the complete thought. He that can love unloved again hath better store of love than brain. And turning to the answers, we see the first one is A, basically considers himself unworthy of love. He that can love unloved again doesn't really say anything about whether or not the person in question considers himself unworthy or not. He might, but we can't tell from that line. The answer goes beyond the scope of the line. The line doesn't give us a why, it only gives us a what this hypothetical person does, not his reasons for doing it. So we can eliminate A. B, continues to love someone who no longer loves him. This seems better. This doesn't take us outside of the scope of the line. He that can love unloved again can certainly be interpreted to be talking about someone who loves another person who doesn't love him back. He loves when he is unloved again. So this answer works. C, falls in and out of love repeatedly. Now, it's important to understand that the phrase unloved again, those two words are grammatically joined here. If the line were saying loved again, as in the person loved again, there would have to be a set of commas around the word unloved. It would have to read, he that can love unloved again. Since those commas aren't there, then we're not talking about someone who loves again or loves repeatedly. Instead, we're talking about someone who is unloved again, which can mean either he is repeatedly unloved or that his love is not returned, as answer B suggests. So grammatically, this sentence doesn't allow for the interpretation that this person falls in and out of love repeatedly. So we can cross out C. D, consistently falls in love with those who spurn his affections. Again, the same problem applies here. Grammatically, we're not talking about a pattern of falling in love. We're talking about possibly one instance of this person not having his love reciprocated, or, less likely, but possible, that he has been unloved repeatedly. But we don't have anything about repeatedly falling in love. The answer choice, like answer choice C, is designed to see if you were understanding the grammatical function of the word again as it's used here. So D is incorrect, and we can cross it out. E, tends to love those who are rejected by others. This answer has the same problem, only it's more convoluted. There isn't a tendency to love established here, which is what you might think if you're not correctly determining the way the word again is functioning in this line. And we certainly don't have anything that indicates that this person loves anyone who has been rejected by others. So this answer is completely unacceptable. And the best answer is still B, continues to love someone who no longer loves him. Question number 3. In context, store in line 6 most nearly means what? So taking a quick look back at the lines, we see that this is talking about the line directly after the one we just looked at. He that can love unloved again hath better store of love than brain. So now we know what he's saying in line 5. Let's put that together with line 6, and it goes something like this. He who continues to love someone who no longer loves him hath better store of love than brain. And let's put a blank there and see which word makes sense. Hath better memory of love than brain? Hath better quality of love than brain? Hath better knowledge of love than brain? Hath better supply of love than brain? Hath better state of love than brain? If you read over all these options, the one that makes the most sense is D, supply. The speaker is saying that someone who loves someone who no longer loves him has a better supply of love than he does of brains. Or in other words, such a person isn't very smart. So the correct answer is D, supply. Question number 4. The second stanza, lines 9 through 16, suggests a relationship between what and what. Let's read over that. Nothing could have my love o'erthrown if thou hadst still continued mine. Yea, if thou hadst remained thy own, I might perchance have yet been thine. But thou thy freedom didst recall, that it thou might elsewhere enthrall, and then how could I but disdain a captive's captive to remain? And let's look at the answer choices. A, fate and free will. Well, we have the idea of free will here. The speaker tells his lover that she recalled her freedom so that she could get involved with someone else, and her new lover is her choice. So we have people making their own choices, which indicates free will. However, there isn't anything about fate in these lines, and if one part of the answer is wrong, then that answer can't be correct. So cross out A. B, autonomy and possession. Autonomy refers to individual freedom and choice, and we just saw that there's definitely that going on here. In these lines particularly, the speaker mentions his lover recalling or taking back her freedom. So there is certainly the idea of autonomy. So let's look into possession. We have this line here where he says, if thou hadst still continued mine, yea, if thou hadst remained thy own, I might perchance have yet been thine. So mine, thine, thy own all indicate possession. If his lover had continued to be his lover, or if she had been her own person, he might still have been hers. Then he talks about not wanting to be a captive's captive, or captive to someone who is captive to someone else, which again carries the notion of possessing someone. So B, autonomy and possession, is a good answer. C, companionship and loneliness. You might say that there's something about companionship here because he's talking about a lover, possessing a lover, which entails companionship, but there isn't anything specifically to indicate loneliness, so we can eliminate C. D, fantasy and reality. No, there isn't any indication that part of what he's saying is fantasy. As far as we know, he is dealing in reality only, so cross out D. E, spiritual and physical love. There is no distinction here between spiritual and physical love. This could be physical love he's talking about, or spiritual, or a combination of the two. We have no way of knowing for sure from these lines, so this answer is insupportable. Cross out E. And the best answer is B, autonomy and possession. Question number 5. Which of the following best paraphrases lines 11, 12? And the lines in question read, yea, if thou hadst remained thy own, I might perchance have yet been thine. The clearest part of that is the second line. I might perchance have yet been thine. Perchance means possibly or perhaps. Thine means yours. So he's saying, I might possibly yet be yours, or I might possibly still be yours. If we look at the answer choices, we can see immediately that A, if you had not kept to yourself, I might have known you better, won't work because the second half of that answer doesn't fit with what we know. So cross out A. B, if you had stayed with me, I might have remained loyal to you. While the second half might work here, look at the first half. Yet if thou hadst remained thy own is quite different from if you had stayed with me. So this doesn't fit. Cross out B. C, if you had remained true to yourself, I might perhaps still be yours. So here we have a very good match. If thou hadst remained thy own is very similar to if you had remained true to yourself. And I might perchance have yet been thine, and I might perhaps still be yours, mean the same thing as we saw earlier. So C is the best answer so far. D, if you had not changed, I might not have changed either. Here the first part seems like it might be close. If thou hadst remained thy own, and if you had not changed, might have a similar meaning, but it's not as good an answer as C, which much more specifically fits the meaning of lines 11 and 12. So cross out D. E, if you had not left, I might possibly have asked for your hand in marriage. This one doesn't really fit at all. If thou hadst remained thy own, and if you had not left aren't the same at all, without even getting into how much of a stretch we have to make to assume he's talking about marriage in the second part. So cross out E. And of the answers we have, C, if you had remained true to yourself, I might perhaps still be yours, is by far the best.